To start, we need to know about residual insulin secretion in type 1 diabetes and what is C-peptide. C-peptide is a substance produced by the pancreas alongside insulin. It's a game changer that's reshaping how we think about this condition. C-peptide is created when the hormone insulin is made by the pancreas and released into the body. When your pancreas makes insulin, it actually starts with a bigger molecule called proinsulin. This proinsulin gets split into two parts, insulin and C-peptide. Both are then released into your bloodstream in equal amounts. Now, you might be wondering, why do we care about C-peptide if insulin is the star of the show? 1. C-peptide is super useful to measure how much insulin your body is making. C-peptide stays in your blood longer than insulin, so it's easier to measure accurately. 2. It can help doctors tell the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Sometimes, by mistake, people with type 1 diabetes get treated as type 2 diabetes. That is because he or she was not properly diagnosed in the first place. Just because somebody gets diabetes in old age, does not mean that person has type 2 diabetes. People with type 1 diabetes usually have very low or no measurable C-peptide because their pancreas isn't making insulin. But folks with type 2 diabetes often have normal or high levels of C-peptide. If someone has low blood sugar but high C-peptide, it might mean their body is making too much insulin. C-peptide test measures the amount of C-peptide in the blood or urine. It can help healthcare providers determine what type of diabetes a person has, type 1 or type 2. It also can reveal how well diabetes treatments are working. Another use for C-peptide is to determine your insulin resistance level. 4. It's useful for monitoring diabetes treatment. Doctors can use C-peptide levels to see if a person with diabetes needs to start taking insulin or if their current treatment is working well. But here's something cool. Scientists have discovered that C-peptide isn't just a byproduct. It actually does some important stuff in your body. It helps with blood flow in small blood vessels and might even protect against some of the complications of diabetes. The normal level of C-peptide in your blood is usually between 0.3 to 3.3 nanograms per milliliter. Wait, there is more, but do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe, down below. I hope your doctor knows how to interpret your results based on your situation. Type 1 diabetes is a chronic disease where the immune system attacks the pancreatic beta cells that produce insulin. Traditionally, we thought these cells were completely wiped out. But guess what? Recent research shows that's not always the case. Now, you might be wondering, how do we measure this residual insulin production? Enter C-peptide, the unsung hero of diabetes research. C-peptide is released in equal amounts to insulin and has a longer half-life, making it a reliable indicator of insulin production. A recent research in Brazil looked at 95 patients who had been living with type 1 diabetes for at least 5 years. The results? Pretty surprising. About 29.5% of these patients still had some insulin secretion. That's nearly 1 in 3 people. But wait, there's more. Another study, the DCCT-EDIC, looked at people who had type 1 diabetes for an average of 35 years. They found that 12.4% of participants still had some level of insulin production. That's lower than the Brazilian study, but still significant considering how long these folks had been living with diabetes. So, what does this mean for people with type 1 diabetes? Well, it turns out that even a little bit of insulin production can make a big difference. The DCCT-EDIC study found that people with higher levels of C-peptide, above 0.03 nmol/L, had fewer episodes of severe hypoglycemia. That's a big deal because severe low blood sugar can be dangerous and scary. But here's where it gets really interesting. The study divided people into groups based on their C-peptide levels. Those with high levels, above 0.2 nmol/L, had only a 27% chance of experiencing severe hypoglycemia. For those with intermediate levels, between 0.03 and 0.2 nmol/L, it was 48%. But for those with low levels, below 0.03 nmol/L, or no detectable C-peptide, the risk jumped to 74% and 70% respectively. Now, you might be thinking, great, but what about long-term complications? Well, the news there is a bit mixed. The DCCT-EDIC study didn't find a significant difference in rates of advanced microvascular complications between those with and without residual insulin production. But don't lose hope. Other studies have shown some benefits. For example, a study of patients who had type 1 diabetes for 9 to 16 years found that those who still produced some insulin, as measured by C-peptide in urine, had significantly lower HbA1c levels. HbA1c is a measure of average blood sugar over time, so lower is better. The C-peptide producers had an average HbA1c of 6.9%, compared to 7.9% in those who didn't produce C-peptide. This study also found fewer signs of eye and kidney problems in the C-peptide producers. Only 2 out of 22 C-peptide producers had moderate to advanced background retinopathy, compared to 7 out of 22 non-producers. And for kidney issues, only 1 C-peptide producer had microalbuminuria, an early sign of kidney damage, compared to 5 non-producers. But here's where it gets really wild. A study of people who had lived with type 1 diabetes for 50 years or more, nicknamed the medalists, found that a whopping 67.4% had detectable C-peptide levels. That's way higher than in other studies. Even more fascinating, when they examined the pancreases of 9 deceased medalists, they found insulin-producing cells in all of them, even in those who had undetectable C-peptide levels in their blood. This suggests that some beta cells might be hiding out, surviving the immune attack for decades. So, what does all this mean for people living with type 1 diabetes? Well, it's giving researchers new ideas for treatment. If we can figure out how these resilient beta cells survive, we might be able to protect more of them in newly diagnosed patients. Or maybe we could find ways to regrow or regenerate beta cells in people who have had diabetes for a long time. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. While this research is exciting, it doesn't mean we've found a cure. Most people with type 1 diabetes still need insulin therapy to survive. The amount of insulin these residual beta cells produce is usually very small, often less than 20% of what a non-diabetic person's pancreas would make. Still, every little bit helps. Even a small amount of natural insulin production can make blood sugar management easier and reduce the risk of severe low blood sugar episodes. It might also help protect against some long-term complications. So, what can you do with this information? If you have type 1 diabetes, talk to your doctor about getting your C-peptide levels checked. Knowing whether you have any residual insulin production might help you and your healthcare team fine-tune your treatment plan. And if you're a researcher or healthcare provider, this work underscores the importance of preserving beta cell function. The earlier we can diagnose and treat type 1 diabetes, the better chance we have of saving some of those precious insulin-producing cells. Remember, diabetes management is a marathon, not a sprint. Every bit of help, even from a few surviving beta cells, can make that marathon a little easier. So let's celebrate these resilient little cells and the hope they bring for better treatments in the future. Keep your eyes peeled for more research in this area. Who knows? The next big breakthrough in type 1 diabetes treatment might come from understanding these persistent beta cells. Until then, keep managing your diabetes the best you can, and never lose hope. Science is always moving forward, and today's discoveries are tomorrow's treatments. Do not forget to click the like button and subscribe. On the screen, you see a few videos related to some other diabetes-related issues. Thanks very much for watching this video.